Hi, and we're back after way too long. And I know that this is the second time that we do this intro, Chris. But let's pretend this is the first time. It's been really a long time, hasn't it?
It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. We had an interview 2 weeks ago, which we broke up into two parts. But as for you and me getting together, I think it's been 3 weeks at least.
Yeah, because I've been either inundated with work or having guests, or it was fires around here, or both things. My astronaut just fell because fires and
That's the
guests
first
running
time
at
that
one
it's
time.
that's ever been said in history.
That's true. No,
My
no,
astronaut just fell. No one's that sentence has never been uttered.
this is
Well,
the
that's cool.
astronaut that gives me my little
Oh, that's how
nebula.
you get the little lighting effect.
Yeah, it's so cute, isn't it?
The secret
Yeah,
exposed.
yeah. Anyway, there you go. He's going to be on the wall now. So
I also got a video posted. At the time of this recording, I just posted a video about my nuanced opinion on AI, which I think is a long time coming, and I've been petrified to post it because of the potential vitriol. But it has yet to hit, but I imagine it still will. But yeah, that's it. You would think saying that my views are complicated, and I still denounce the use of AI as a means of completely circumventing artists. But a lot of people have issues with even that. Uh, but that went online at the time of this recording, so we'll see if there's any blowback. But it's there for me to cover my butt in case people do. I started playing with AI detectors with some of the artwork I
oh,
was
they're
getting.
useless.
I could not believe how useless they are. I actually went to the top four links and started running artwork through, and they were not only not consistent with each other, but they weren't even consistent with the truth of the illustration itself.
Look,
So
right now, there is absolutely no tool out there that can be accurate enough to detect AI, at least not commercially. Okay, I'm not going to say that there might be some enterprises that don't have
yeah,
it at the very secret level, or the army, that sort of thing. I don't know. I know that my company is working on that kind of tools, but right now there isn't one that's publicly available that you could use to detect something that then you would be able to take to court as evidence.
yeah,
It's just not reliable enough. That is simple as that. I still think that for degenerative images, a keen eye for detail is way more useful than a AI spotter, because right now they don't do anything at all.
yeah. For me, it's way easier. It's been way easier for me to spot. It's blatantly obvious, and it's really totally easy nowadays to spot these things. Just not even the hand thing, but just stuff in general. But it's been a very interesting few days. I had somebody submit an adventure, and a large portion of it was written by AI, and I could tell. So I had to send it back, and hopefully, like we'll get it fixed up a little bit because, like, if I can tell, then it becomes blatantly obvious. But yes, it's been a few interesting few weeks, and I'm still trying to get my current RPG out. I'm still waiting on artwork. I still probably have another half a dozen images. He said he'd have it done by the end of the month. He's got 4 days. I actually managed to play some board games. Most of them aren't really very relatively new, but I do have them hiding in the blue screen. You can't see it, but I am fondling these games. Here's something of interest, completely unrelated.
Uh-huh.
My wife came up to me and said, "Hey, I've got some uh, Nintendo DS games to sell." She's like, "Can you put them on the local marketplace?" I was like, "Sure." And she also gave me some PlayStation games. I put the PlayStation games up first, and some person said they wanted to buy those, and I said I had some NDS games as well. They asked which ones. I sent them the photo, and they said specifically, um, I dread to ask how much you're selling the Pokemon game for.
Ooh,
And
that could fetch a lot.
when they said that, I was like, "What's my wife?" Was like, "What the hell does that mean?" So I went and looked up, and it turns out like she has Pokemon Diamond, Soul Silver, X Black, Platinum, and those games are going for between $50 and $120, with some of them going as high as $600 if sealed. And so I stopped posting the eBay, the one. I pulled it back. I amended the prices. I threw them back up. and somebody paid me $340 yesterday for the lot of them. So when my wife came down, I gave her a $10 bill and say, I sold a few of your Nintendo games. And she went, yeah, that's to be expected. I said, actually, I sold them all for $340. And she completely, her jaw dropped and she was just flabbergasted that she actually had. Probably could have made 400, 450, maybe even 500 if I mucked around on eBay, but it wasn't worth it. We could have a quick, easy sale for 340. So we were happy with it.
You know, a few months ago, somebody in a group where you give away things was giving away the skeleton of a Neanderthal. He claimed to be real. I don't know. So anyway, we were going to and fro what he would like as a exchange, and I said, I have a few video games that you may be interested in. Oh, okay, which one is the most interesting? I said, look, I have this Skyrim, a collector's edition with this massive dragon, and it's, you know, in very, very good state. Even the box is in very, very good state. I went online to check, and apparently somebody's selling that game for 600 euros.
Wow.
Which I was a bit, that sounds like a bit too much, but no, apparently that's what it goes for. If some video games can actually accrue a huge amount of money, especially limited editions or games that are really, really, really old. So if anybody has video games at home, I would double check and see what the real price right now is, because they might be sitting on some
which actually that could actually transition to a pretty interesting topic about people who buy board games with the effort to flip them for profit. There is a very popular YouTube channel, which I do not follow anymore, who checks Kickstarters and so forth, and then discusses. He rarely ever discusses board games as things he plays, but their capacity for him to flip them for profit because of scarcity. Any game with minis, for example, he believes that you could flip for profit, and he has said that he does not lose. He very rarely loses money on board games he flips, and it's something that's very unusual, where board games are really touchy because too many times I've seen people sell board games, even in a local marketplace, for exactly the same amount of money. One person I remember was posting the Game of Thrones card game, and they were posting it for a price that I couldn't help but send it to the owner and said, you know, you're selling it for more than I could buy it off of an online storefront. And she was comparing the price locally from the local places. I looked it up at this game store and they were selling it for this price, so I'm $5 below it. I go, yes, but local stores are selling it overpriced. And I showed her the link, and they're just like, well, I'm still not dropping it. I'm like, well, good luck selling it. And I don't think she ever did. But for me, when I sell board games, I don't mess around. I do go about 30, 40% off price markup. And most often I do sell them. Sometimes it depends whether or not the time of year, but I have a pretty good turnover rate because I'm not trying to sell these games for profit. I just want to get rid of them because we have a limited selection. In fact, I'm going to be talking about two of the games I have for sale now.
It's interesting because I don't usually see people at least in Spain, selling games for any more money than they paid for. It's very, very, very rare. Sorry, my dog is looking at me weird. But what I see though is people trying to sell at absolutely ridiculous prices role-playing games from 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh, like old before.
You know, things like the Spanish version of Middle-earth role-playing game. I reckon people trying to get like 150, 180 euros for it. Which I looked at that and I'm thinking, wait a second, I can get this in English in eBay for pence.
Yeah.
Bonkers, completely and utterly bonkers. But board game is very, very rare that people sell them for more than they actually bought it.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
So okay, let's talk about your games.
Okay, so I have two examples of Kickstarter games. One is what happens when you have a big company that produces a product, and then you have one that is from a very small independent company. And so the first I'm going to talk about is this one. City of Gears.
Okay.
City of Gears. I want to. It's done by Gray Fox, which have done a lot, and I also want to point out the Seal of Excellence, which is awarded if Tom gives your game like an 8.5 or higher.
I think it's. I wonder how much it costs.
I meant this game probably costs about $60 to $70. I think.
No, I meant the award. I was being facetious.
So this, I would say, I relatively have enjoyed games that do have the Seal of Excellence. They generally are pretty good. This is not one of those. This is a very interesting idea. Ultimately, there's a game mechanic called an engine builder. An engine builder is where you do an action and you have a small little machine that you influence, and every time you do something on the machine, you get to do more with it. So you can have an action and you can produce more stuff with that action. One of the more easy examples of that is Scythe. And there's probably dozens of dozens. It is probably one of my all-time favorite genres because you can make an entirely bespoke creation where every time you do the same action, it gets better and better and better. You can string benefits together. Now, I would say City of Gears is a worker placement engine builder, but the engine is shared between all the players. So yeah, you use the engine and so basically it's an area control game and everyone's trying to control the engine. So whoever controls the most engine could do the most on their turn. But this creates a slight issue. If you're a good player and you've taken control of the most area, that means you could do the most on your turn, thus be able to accomplish more in your turn, which enforces your own control over an area, which means a person who doesn't have as much control can't do as much on their turn, which means their turns are less powerful, which means it creates a feedback loop where the person who gains control over the map, over the board, ends up kind of running away with the victory because they can, on their turn, they can do so much. So as a result, I won the game with my wife, and it wasn't even, I thought maybe she was close, but it turns out she wasn't close at all. I had almost doubled her score because I had control over the majority of the map longer than she did, and I was able to create and repeat this engine over and over. Now, there are some Take That elements. There's an expansion you can get, which is a Take That element. And it has some really neat mini miniatures. The worker meeples, you can't see it here. The worker meeples are little robots. They're custom made. You have these plastic gears that you put out that you can claim and they have special abilities, and you pull them. I'm a little frustrated with the fact that the way the end game works is if you pull a certain number of these gears out of the bag, you throw these white gears in, and the moment you pull out the third white gear, the game immediately ends right in the middle of someone's turn. No matter what, you don't finish an equal number of turns. The game ends immediately at that point, and I felt that was a little petty. It truncates someone's turn and creates a situation where, once again, you have an uneven number of turns, and it would have been so I triggered the game on my turn and I went first, which means theoretically I had one extra turn over my wife. So to make that even worse, I would give this game, I would say it has some elements that may be enjoyable, and I can see this game being a complete complex cluster F at 4 players. At 2, there also isn't very much interaction. Within 45 minutes, you've occupied. That's the trigger. The trigger is once everyone's claimed one of the tiles on the map. And my wife said a game would probably be more enjoyable if we made the map larger because we could do more and we could explore the map. Within a half an hour of the game, chances are you've claimed every one of the 9 tiles. And at that point, it just becomes a counter move for the next half an hour until the tile comes out. So so there's 2 phases of the game, exploring and claiming, and then just simply counter moving. And you end up just repeating this process over and over for the next half an hour, and it gets really repetitive. The first half of the game is enjoyable, so I would give this a solid, I would say maybe a 6.5.
Okay.
out of 10. The second game is very different. This one's called Into the Black Boarding Party. Now, I liked the idea. It is a cooperative piracy game set in space.
Okay.
I liked the idea and premise. I knew that the game was very, very low quality when it comes to just production value. It has basic minis, very limited artwork. It's traditional tile based. I could tell from the graphic design, it had a very limited style. It didn't raise a lot. This is definitely the opposite. This is a much more lower budgeted production, and basically in it, you play as pirates that are invading and exploring a ship. So you're exploring a ship. Alarms are going off, and you're trying to gain some ill-gotten booty while taking care of security that pops up. And then at that point, trying to succeed in the mission. And our mission, in the second time we played this game twice. we had to basically plant explosives in the generator, basically try to blow up the whole place. And so we had to acquire 2 specific cards out of a deck, which gets a little frustrating because you end up having to just keep on doing the same action, going to the same deck to get things, and then taking those cards to a specific room, and then using those 2 cards, and then doing it a second time at another location, and then escaping. Very, very quickly, we had to start homebrewing rules because it was clear that the game was written and then not properly tested, because there were so many things that we would look at and go, why is that rule there? Like, there are characters that are clearly good at combat. They are fantastic at combat, but they can't attack more than one person in a turn. And very, very quickly, you'll have 3 or 4 enemies occupying one single square. And they will chase you, and they will often join up with each other, which means I had the most powerful guy, and we agreed that this was a broken system because the most damage I could do 6 or 7 points of damage in a turn, and the average opponent had 1 or 2. Which means I don't know why we had all of this. I didn't know why we had this much capacity to inflict this much damage if we could only kill 1 person in this square of 4. Then they get to counterattack. Their dice all get added up, which is now more than mine, and I have hit points. So they can then team up and kill this extremely powerful character in one shot because there is no rule in place about spreading your damage across multiple targets. You have ranged weapons, and yet you cannot attack someone unless you're occupying their square. So there are these huge, weird rules in place, because they didn't think of line of sight, of attacking with a ranged weapon. You can drop a grenade, but you can only drop a grenade in your space and damage yourself. So all you could do is drop a grenade like this and blow it up in your own square. And I'm thinking, that seems stupid. Why can't you do it in an adjacent square? They didn't write these rules because the person who wrote them was not experienced in what good game design is. The game is also weird in the fact that it has a whole bunch of characters, and once a character is killed, you then pull up another character, and you have to start that process over. That the gear vanishes, that character gets removed, and the game just continues. But now that one character has to basically start over because they have their own mission that starts up. So if you have a person who dies that's almost completed their personal objective, and then they die, you basically have to start the game from the start again. And so the game can then run for potentially hours until it finally just runs out of the clock. And it gets even more frustrating because enemies, there's no limit on the number of security guys that come out. They'll just keep on coming out, and they could eventually swarm you to the point that in one of the episodes we had, 4 or 5 opponents land in one single square. And I was like, that's impossible. Like, that is an impossible force. The moment any of us goes into that space, we die instantly because we can't kill those 5. And there's no rule about spreading your damage over multiple targets. So we had to include that rule as it was the only way for us to It was the only way for us to properly even have a chance of even beating the game, let alone have it be enjoyable. Uh, and it it became a little annoying, just the way the game is. Like you think it would be fun from an exploration point of view, but once again, there are tons of rooms, and every room has an event. Almost every, well, actually, 99% of the rooms have events, and these events are all crappy. They're all horrific things that pop up. There are monsters. There are radiation leaks, gas leaks, traps, and so whenever you go into a room, virtually nothing is going to pop up that's going to change the environment. Most like I've had characters that were permanently locked in a room because they had no way of escaping and no one had explosives to open the door. So that character was literally trapped in that area and could not escape. The game also doesn't scale. So if you're playing with two people, you get a phantom third player that doesn't do anything, and the game becomes virtually impossible to win because you can't do everything. So we had to restart the game and decide to play with 4 players, 2 each. We all had our individual objectives, but because there were so many more of us, we could do a lot more and spread resources. There are tons of like fuzzy rules in play, and the game is just frustrating when we look at the number of times we had to open a book and go, where is the rule for this? And the code was just like, there is no rule. Like there is no rule. We have to make it up because it doesn't actually explain what happens when this happens. So it is a painfully underwritten rule system. It's frustratingly untested. It like I think another good example. I can't remember what I'm trying to think if there was another another example. Yeah. Wandering the way the enemies moved was extremely confusing. There is like, and combat is completely unbaked. Unfortunately, I think that this is one of those examples where you could pay a professional game designer like $500 and they would rewrite this manual from the ground up and could have made a real astoundingly fun game. But it's clear the designers here weren't interested in that, because if they decided to play this game enough times, they would have seen what I thought were glaring holes in the mechanics. So unfortunately, I have to give this one an unfortunate 2.5 out of 10. It's not a well-designed game. It could have been really good if it had a polish or if they properly play tested it.
It sounds like the kind of game that has only been play tested by the designer with their friends. And
yeah, exactly.
The only reason that they like it is because they can sort out all the doubts on the fly, and therefore there are no holdups, there are no bottlenecks.
Yeah,
I am very used to games that don't have the rules very well written, because when I play alone for Asian games, don't have the rules very well translated, and because of the language differences, languages express the same thing in 2 very different ways, and that shows. But if the game works, you can always more or less deduce what they're meant to be saying or doing, and eventually it does work. It may take a little bit, but the frustration disappears the moment you understand the rule. But what you are describing is just rules not very well explained, not very well written, and not very well set with people who've never played the game.
Yeah. If I was to give any form of positive, like I said, the artwork is very, very basic. This is the artwork. Okay. Right? That's basically the best, which is simplistic. It's not particularly good, but it is the only artwork in the game. But I will say that if there's a saving grace, something that's redeemable, I have to find it. To say that there are a lot of characters, I said I think they expected that that a lot of characters would die during the sake, because these are all the characters they give you.
Well, sounds like a fair amount, actually.
Yeah, this is insane. There is probably like 25 different characters you can play. Okay. I have never seen a game that set aside so many resources to characters. And I have to say this, there is a dog character, so that I think raises the score to a 3.
But the thing is, and don't get me wrong, because I know that an awful lot of games do this and do this very well, but when you find so many characters in a game, I find that a red flag, because that means that you have to balance a lot more data
Yeah,
and a lot more rules and a lot more resources within the game.
yeah,
So, how to make sure that 10 characters are balanced is one thing. To make sure that 25 characters are balanced, that is a mighty task.
yeah. So here are the events. Every time you enter a room, you display these cards. And I'm going to go through a very quick rundown to give an idea how unforgiving this is. Explosion, escape creature, chemical spill, enemy defender, blast door, collapse 4, force field activation, enemy defender. A no event. That's where there's one no event. Escape creature, no event. Emergency lockdown, biohazard, enemy defender, plasma leak, collapse floor, biohazard, enemy defender, chemical spill, enemy defender, decompression, enemy defender, no event. There's a third one. Artificial gravity failure, blast door, another event. Hollow news bulletin, any defender. Only at the end, I found an unexpected ally, and then decompression, plasma leak, blast door, and 2 treasure trove cards. It is almost entirely negative, and I feel like there should have been more story. There could have been more interesting story instead of just crisis after crisis after crisis.
I'm,
Even the
I'm going to venture saying that if the designer played at role-playing games, they would be looking for the TPK.
Yeah, basically, yeah. The 5 to 6, yeah, there's also a 5 to 6 player expansion, but oh my god, for the love of God, don't play that. So that is Into the Black.
And Into the Black he'll stay. I think.
And Into the Black he will stay.
He's not going to see the light again, it seems.
Yes, exactly. We'll see if it'll sell.
Well, I haven't. I have played a number of games, but I haven't really prepared any reviews because today I arrived home incredibly late, so I haven't been able. Also, I will have some for next week. But I want to talk very briefly about a really bad escape room experience that I had 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Oh my god! My friends and I like to go to escape room every couple of months or so. And so far, we've had some very, very good experiences. But last time, everything was so Jesus. I mean, this is the beginner's escape room. So, more than to talk shit about the escape room, which I will, I would like to use this as an opportunity to tell people, if you're preparing a game, whether it is escape room or any other kind of game, make sure to avoid these kind of pitfalls because, oh my God. When we arrived, the first thing that happened is that we had to wait at the door, and there was a young woman waiting. Said, "Oh, are you the 8 o'clock group?" Yes. Oh, they're just waiting, giving the introduction to the group that's going to the other escape room, and I'm meant to be giving you the introduction to the room, but we cannot get in yet, so we will be going in a minute. And I thought, this is not very atmospheric or professional. Don't do that. In she went, and about 2 minutes later, she appears with a gas mask. This is a futuristic game, okay, in which we are told, in a lobby that looks like my sitting room and absolutely nothing like the science fiction setting that we are meant to be in. And she explains from behind the mask how we have been called from a different colony to come to this colony to try and figure out what happened to the doctor who disappeared from his bunker a week ago. So I'm a bit, okay, you are not very believable. This is not very believable. This is not very, immersive. But, we go with it. Inside we go. I tell you, within 5 minutes, we were 7 of us. We were all divided in mini groups, trying to figure out all the puzzles randomly. There was absolutely no connecting dots between the puzzles. There was no clear storyline. There was no tension whatsoever. Most of the puzzles were finding combinations to open padlocks, and they only had 3 really cool ones. One was you had to put your hands in a chemical box and literally put together some chemicals to get a color that then you had to go someplace else to choose in order to open a box. And it was a pH test, like those you use for aquariums. The other one was a ball that had to come through some platforms and you had to kind of guide it to go someplace. Fiendishly hard, but very satisfying once we finished it. And the other one was just finding some magnetic chips that you had to put on a radio that then was meant to be turning up. What a horrible experience that was. 20 euros completely and utterly wasted. So please, 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 human beings, if you want to design an adventure of sorts, any kind of adventure, any kind of escape room, any kind of choose your own adventure book, anything at all like that. Oh, and by the way, we never found out what the hell happened to the doctor. We only found out that he wasn't there. That Sebastian, who I thought was going to be his partner, was actually his computer. And what we ended up doing was assembling a key that we would put inside a box that then would release some sort of gas into the atmosphere that would heal the planet, which is what the doctor was working on. So we were told at the beginning, find the doctor and what happened to him. And we ended up finding out what the hell he was doing. Nothing to do with the doctor. I wanted to kill somebody that day, metaphorically.
Is it, at least it wasn't like that Willy Wonka adventure in Edinburgh, where
what?
Oh, come on! You have to heard about this.
No.
That somebody was advertising a Willy Wonka experience in, I think, Glasgow in Scotland.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of people paid. They all went there, and it was a bunch of AI generated images, actors in bad costumes. Right? They invented new characters for no reason. It was just basically a warehouse with walls. There was no chocolate. It was just, and yeah, it's been insanely. It went viral for a good spell last 2 weeks.
Well, I didn't see that. What I saw was the aftermath, in which the designer apparently came out and said, "Oh, they hate me so much," and then it transpired that he published about 16 books, AI written books in Amazon last summer or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's obviously a Willy Wonka.
Yep.
So anyway, terrible experience. Seriously, people, don't come to Valencia to go to that escape room. It was shit.
I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I like the purchase portable pocket box size escape rooms, but I've never been a huge fan of the rooms. So I also played another game over the weekend, and it brought up a topic about if there's a game that everybody seems to love, but you dislike. And there are a few games which I absolutely love more than most people, like Alien Frontiers. There's a game called, oh God, it is Apocalypse Chaos. It's a wonderful card-based cooperative game that Nicole and I have played maybe 8-9 times. We really enjoy it. It is not easy. It's a game that has 4 rounds, and those 4 rounds take about 40 minutes. It's a very fascinating game. It's all about knowing what's going to happen, planning it out, and then when you hit play, all of your programming starts off, and then you hope that you've done everything correctly. It's a very fascinating game. I know Rado loves it, and he gave it an 8. I would probably give it a 7.5, but doesn't have a particularly high review, but it's a great game. And I said, Alien Frontiers is probably, I think it's still in my top 10 games of all time.
Same here.
An example of a game that a lot of people like and I absolutely cannot stand is a game called Mission Red Planet. And Mission Red Planet is a game where it is a timed game. Oh no, sorry, it's a specific type of game where you take a card, you hold it down, and it's called a simultaneous reveal mechanic. There's a few games that use it where you pick a card, you lay it down, and then everybody reveals their card at the same time. And there's a bit of rock, paper, scissors, like something will counter something and something will counter something else. And the whole objective is to get as many of your guys onto rocket ships and take them to Mars for an area control mechanic. Now, the issue I have with the game is that it is only somebody who's like an expert player of poker who could remember all the cards people have played would be able to counter and make sure what are the odds of them playing a card that counteracts mine. Then you reveal, and it's not like your card can be neutered. You can reveal a card that gets nullified in its entirety, which means you basically lose a turn. And losing a turn mechanic is one of my all-time worst ideas out there. Losing a turn is one of the worst mechanics out there. If you have a game where you effectively lose a turn, it's not a good game. But what made it worse is that the game was truncated to only 10 rounds. I could handle a game where you lose a turn where the turns were fast and you were dozens of them. But when it's truncated to 10, losing one basically means if you have a bad reveal, you can sit the rest of the game out because you're not going to even come close to winning. There is no way to come back from that single mistake.
That's pretty much like player elimination, really, with other mechanisms.
Yeah. And one of the things I've been upfront, I actually have commented about my hatred of Mission Red Planet in my review for Alien Frontiers. I said Alien Frontiers, which has a very similar end mechanic, which is area control over a planet, but gets to it with that's a lot more enjoyable. And I said how much I dislike Mission Red Planet for doing the opposite of that. And there were people that simply said, I cannot respect your opinion because you don't love Mission Red Planet. And I have been told from people that it is on their top 10 games of all time. But I've also hung out with friends that love to troll people in games. They love confrontation. They want to be able to defeat someone else. It's not about me having more score. I want to be able to hurt you. And I know players that are like that, and they love this game because there is a lot of take that. But that's not even the game I'm talking about. There's a game that's more loved that I like proportionally even less, because Mission Red Planet is popular, but it's not a top tier game. This is a top tier game, which I've declared to my wife that I will never, ever play again. And the game is called Wingspan.
Really?
It's not that I had a bad experience. I've played Wingspan 4 times, and I have yet to enjoy it once. I understand that Nicole and I don't like games where we're constantly fighting each other. But on the same case, we also don't want to play a solitaire game where everything happens privately and there is zero interaction between us in any way. The cards, there are only 3 cards. And because there's only 3 cards, there's very little, oh, you got a card that I stopped caring about which cards are available, because you can always just draw the cards to the top of the deck. The second thing is that there are these dice that you roll and then you pick resources. So that's a shortage that we're fighting for. But even then, it doesn't matter because it's all about the cards that you build. So you can build this engine builder. Once again, it's an engine builder, kind of like other games. For me, I have never felt connected to the theme. Like, yes, these are birds. It's almost an abstract game because there's the application of these birds means nothing on this board where certain cards do different things. Like there's no interrelation between the bird theme and the mechanics of the game.
Hmm.
Additionally, on your turn, you will have a certain level of options available for you based off of your mission and so forth. And so it is entirely possible to have a killer strategy and still get your ass kicked because of luck. And now you think that luck wouldn't be a big factor within an engine builder, but there is a very nefarious hidden level of luck in Wingspan that I think a lot of people ignore. There isn't as much strategy within the game as you might think. Um, like for example, like you get these random rounds. There's like 5 rounds, like 5 rounds, but there's many turns in each round. And each round, there are specific things that can net you points. And you'll know those ahead of time, but it might be actually impossible for you to be able to fulfill those obligations just specifically because of the luck of the draw. And the final thing about the game is that there's too much happening. You get you tuck cards underneath your birds that gives you points. You can put eggs on your birds that get you points. How many cards in a row get you points? There are wild cards, resources, and so forth. The game is filled with a bunch of things where you have no idea where your points are, or even if you're doing well. It's a game where you can be confident that you're doing well and be unbelievably discouraged when you realize the other player has implemented, just through a matter of luck and being able to get the right cards based on their own mission, a strategy that has completely annihilated you. I don't know what it is with Wingspan, but it is one of the most boring games I have ever played.
Wow,
It is
I
it
loved
is
it.
boring. It is
No.
just boring. I can barely engage. I had my 4th game over the weekend,
Mm.
and I could not engage with people. I was having conversations with other people, but everyone was talking the game. And so I eventually disengaged from that group entirely and started talking to my friend who wasn't playing. And they go, Chris, it's your turn. I do my action. Okay. And then I go back to talking to my friend because I had no interest in the theme of this game. And that's what, this is engagement. Maybe Wormspan is a much better game. But I don't know. Like I said, for me, I've always been a bit iffy because I find the game itself to be, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who love this game designer, but she's missed twice because this and Mariposa are 2 really lackluster games.
Okay,
So, I mean, I respect Elizabeth Hargrave, but those 2 games are a big miss for me.
I haven't played Mariposa, so I have no idea. I have played Wingspan, and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, yeah.
I felt it is very very well designed in the way that it increases the complexity of the game as it goes along. It was incredibly easy to learn, even though it is a complex game by all means. But within 2 rounds, we were all playing without the need to look at rules, which for me that is a massive massive triumph. I was loving taking a look at what the birds could do for you if you manage to get one bird or another, and how to get to that bird, and how many eggs to give away or how many eggs to get. I absolutely loved it. And for me, the fact that it's using real birds and that there are so many birds out there, I loved that game. I thought it was so beautiful and elegantly designed. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I said, there are games that people absolutely love. I mean, I've mentioned that Apocrypha is probably my all-time favorite game, full
Mhm.
stop, and a lot of people just do not understand. It triggers something with me that I absolutely love.
I agree
How
with
about
that.
you? Your turn.
Well, I have 2 games that people seem to love, and I just cannot bear the thought of them. One of them is Terra Mystica.
Very
Ugh,
popular game.
ugh. I'm really sorry, but there are several things I hate about that game. One is how obviously the theme has just been put like that on top of a number of rules just because it needs to have some sort of theme, but they make zero sense. Zero. What is terraforming doing in that game? It's bonkers. absolutely bonkers. It completely takes me away from the game itself, and then it just becomes too complicated for no reason. If you lag a little bit behind, it was completely impossible for me to catch up at all. I just don't understand why people like Terra Mystica so much when there are other games out there, other strategy games out there that are considerably better than that. No, Terra Mystica, absolutely not for me whatsoever.
I don't own Terra Mystica. I own Gaia Project, which is apparently it is a carbon copy of Terra Mystica, just in space. So I've yet to play that game, so I can't relate to it. But I absolutely will be worried now that I've gotten your comments on it.
Well, just let me know how it's up, the themes apply, because that for me was a massive no-no. And the other one game that I know it's very good. Okay, so people, please don't hate me too much. I know it's a very good game. I just cannot get into it at all. Is Agricola.
Oh, my wife's gonna have
Um,
to.
oh, I'm sorry, but I just feel that it is similar to a glorified chess where you're going to be playing with fruits and vegetables and fences instead of actually playing with pawns and the queen and the king and whoever. And it's just so overcomplicated, and uh, I can bear it. I'm so sorry. I really, really wish. And please, people, please tell tell me the reasons to like it. Tell me reasons why I should look at Agricola again with different eyes, with different lens, so I can actually end up liking it, because I would love to like it because people speak so highly of it, but I cannot, and I need reasons. So please, please, please help me, give me reasons to like Agricola, because right now it's I rather go shopping and watch a lettuce grow than playing that game.
Um, I know people compare. Have you played Caverna?
No.
Okay, because a lot of people compare Agricola to Caverna, and for Nicole, Caverna is one of her all-time favorite games, full stop. Like, right, Feast for Odin, Caverna. Caverna's probably in her top four. She absolutely loves Caverna. It's a long setup, long play game. You're basically playing dwarves that are trying to, prosper. You can do it by either digging in mines, reproducing, having farms, and so forth. And she absolutely loves it. And I've been told Agricola and Caverna are very, very similar. So I'd be curious to know the differences. We've never bought Agricola because we've been told that Caverna is so similar mechanically. So it would be interesting to know if I ever play Agricola, I go, oh, okay, I can see that this makes sense now. For everyone else watching, yeah, please post in the comments whether or not you like that game, but also any games that everybody loves that you don't. But don't just say it. Tell us why.
Can I give one caveat?
Of course.
You
No,
cannot.
you cannot give a caveat.
Shush. You cannot say Monopoly. Okay, we understand why it is so popular, and we understand why everybody hates it. I hate it. So please, Monopoly is not a choice. Also, I can also say another game, even though I could get into trouble for saying that this is a game that I totally abhor. And I know this is a great game. Again, don't hate me too much. I understand the quality. I just hate it. It's chess. I know that some people think that chess is a sport. And I know that we could get into a massive debate about whether chess is a game or is a sport. What we cannot get into a debate is how much I absolutely hate that game, sport, activity, whatever it is. Despise it.
For me, it's a game. It was probably the best game that people could play when it came out. It's always had an issue in that what was the odds, the fact that if you had two players of almost equal skill, there was a 70% chance whoever got white won. Like there is a strange first player advantage that chess has never ever gotten around, and it's impossible. You can't fix it. It's just inherently baked into the mechanics. But that is always a bit of an issue. I don't know why it's how it works. Why someone said I mean, I could see where games are like first player advantage absolutely comes into play, which is the reason why certain games they change who gets to go first constantly. But chess was never one of the right. It just I don't know why the mathematics came into play, but apparently if you pick white, you just have like a 10% better chance of winning the game than
And
if you didn't.
and also, if you find a player with a greater level of skill than yours, it's absolutely impossible to win that game
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
it's
definitely a game that if you know the strategy, it's definitely a situation where, um, yeah, but that's also the same for a lot of games. I mean, obviously, if I'm teaching somebody a game, there's a very good chance I'm gonna whip their butt because I know how to play the game. That's the other thing, and this is because say I'm a poor sport. I have about an 80 to 85% win rate in almost every board game I play. I don't mind. I don't. Well, it's just how it is. I don't mind. I don't mind losing. I don't mind losing. Um, and if it's a game, there are certain games that where the game itself, for some people like I just want to get to the end to win. Where the experience of playing, this is the reason why I like games like Scythe and a bunch of other games I love because the experience of playing them is enjoyable, especially if it's a game that has a storyline. But when you count Wingspan as for me as being boring, it's hard for me to make a strategy. I've played the game 4 times. I won the very first game. I have not won a single game since. The last game I came last place, but that was also because I was completely unengaged in the experience and I could not care less. But I have never played a game more poorly than I've played a game of Wingspan. And part of that is because I could not give a shit playing it. And I think that's ultimately my problem with it. There's people who say, "Oh, you just a poor sport because you kept on losing at Wingspan." It's not because of that. It's because I can't figure. I can't engage with it. And if I can't engage with it, it's hard for me to have a strategy or enjoy it.
you realize that I'm going to go and tell Jamie you're saying all these things, right?
No, you don't have to. I mean, the funny thing is that
I'm going to tell Jamie that you hate his games.
the hilarious thing is, of course, is that that's one of the few games. Whenever Jamie designs a game, like it's got his name on it, it's actually generally a good game. So you look at the Utopian game from Scythe to Viticulture. These are games that he designed himself, and they're all like some of the greatest games of all time. He didn't design Wingspan, so
but
it's
he
not like
endorsed it, so I'm sorry.
Obviously, it's a game printing
exactly. I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell him that you hate Wingspan because you hate him. I'm just leveling up. Anyway, we should be making a move because we've been going on and on for nearly an hour. And I know that you have to be elsewhere
Yes.
in a very short period of time. So,
Yes.
humans, I am really glad to be back. I didn't tell you at the beginning, but I am Paco Garcia, and this is the GMS Magazine podcast. It has been throughout this hour that you have been so loyally listening, and we very much appreciate it. So please do tell Chris how wrong he is about hating Wingspan in the comments. We'd love to hear that, and please tell me why I should love or like Agricola. Because
and mention, like I said, mention any games
yes.
that everybody loves that you don't care for, and if give reasons. And if it's in the top 100 of Board Game Geek, then all the better. I want to know. I want to feed off your hate. I want to live off them tears.
Good. Until next time, human beings and all the creatures of uncertain origin, thank you very much indeed for being there. It's been wonderful to have you around. Remember that you can follow me on Twitter. I am at GMS Magazine. B-Sky Social as well. I'm there. And on Facebook, I am there. And you can say hi anytime. And I would love to hear from you. And you can email us at podcast@gmsmagazine.com.
And this is Chris from DSX Machina. You can find me on all social media channels under DSX Machina. I don't check X anymore, but yeah, you can find me on all the other channels. And if you are interested in gluten-free crackers, look up Tavern Snaps.
Yes, that's a very good idea. We'll talk to you very soon.
I gotta send you some.
You have to send. Actually, you have to bring some.
Harder. Trust me, like I said,
that would be the most expensive shipping cost ever.
All right, thanks, guys.